In today's video, we're going to be building these mitered doors, and we're going to be adding some applied molding to the inside of the flat panel. We're also going to be installing these Euro-style concealed hinges for a full overlay door. I'll show you guys how to do the measurements for this, and I'll show you how I build a door. All right, let's get started. These are going to be the frames of the doors. This is hard maple. And the reason I'm using hard maple is because this is going in the kitchen. It's for the island. Now, if you haven't seen part one of the island, which is the base cabinet build and the toe kicks and the mitered columns that wrap around the side, then go ahead and check that out. It's the first in the series of this playlist for the kitchen island. So check that out and you'll see how we made all that. Now you can see where we're going to start making the doors for it. And then the following video will be for the drawers. So I have the hard maple here. This is 3/4 of an inch thick, or 19 millimeter roughly. So I switched to a 28 tooth ripping blade for the track saw, and now I have to rip a straight line on all these boards before I go ahead and use the parallel guides to rip everything down to 50 millimeters. So what I like to do when I'm ripping the straight line is clamp the track in place. And that's going to ensure that it doesn't move, because sometimes you hit on, like especially in hard maple and other hardwoods like oak, if you hit a knot or a funky piece of a grain pattern, it could tend to want to give resistance to the saw, and then it could move the track because you may try to force it through. So we don't want any of that to happen. So while I'm clamping this down, it's going to ensure that everything is going to stay nice and tight for me. Clamp down there, head to the other end, quick clamp. Okay, so I'm ready to rip these down to 50 millimeters. Now 50 millimeters, that's the general measurement that I always use for the styles of rails of doors. That's for Imperial, that's just roughly 2 inches. So not only does it make the math easy, but it looks great against a cabinet. All right, so I'm going to set up my parallel guides here. Now, if you don't have parallel guides in the track saw, if you have a table saw, obviously it's going to be a lot easier after you get a straight edge from a jointer or the track saw. You're going to run that straight edge up against your rip fence, and then you're going to cut it to the size that you want. In my case, like I said, 50 millimeters. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to set my parallel guides both to 50. As you can see in my shop, I haven't been using a table saw in quite some time now because it takes up too much room, and I have a really small shop. And this is what will give me the consistency of 50 millimeters, much like using the fence, the rip fence on a table saw. Okay, that's perfect. Now all I have to do is right here in the center, I just hold my boards together, and I have 2 boards here stacked together, and that's for support. And what I'm going to do is, as I cut the first one, I'll take that 50 millimeter piece out, put it to the back, slide everything forward, make another cut, and keep sliding it forward until I'm done. Once my stops contact on both sides, I know that this is going to be a 50 millimeter off cut. So now for figuring out the size of the doors. When you have frameless cabinets, you're not going to cut the doors or the drawers to the exact size of the opening. You need a slight reveal, which not only gives it a little bit of a better look between each one of the cabinets and the doors and the drawers, but at the same time it also gives it room to open up to clear the hinge. So what it is point to point is going to be on the long points of the miter. It's going to be the exact measurement that we need. So the only thing we're subtracting here is going to be 2 millimeters from the top and 2 millimeters from the bottom, which is 4 millimeters. Same thing on the sides, 2 millimeters and 2 millimeters, so it's going to be -4 from the sides. Now I have all these measurements written down because when I built this, I had to do all the math, so I could just go off the paper, but I'm just trying to show you in a sense of how you get the measurements if you were making doors for existing cabinets. Okay guys, so I thought it would be maybe a little bit easier for me to show you this on paper instead of just talking about it. So here we have our cabinet carcass, our opening from top to bottom, which is the height, is 775 millimeters. Okay, so 775. We need to take 2 millimeters from the bottom, 2 millimeters from the top to make our door length. So we're going to minus 4. 2 plus 2 is 4, so we subtract 4. We're going to get 771 millimeters. So we're going to write 771 in here. Now we know we have to cut 2 pieces at 771 for the stiles. So stiles, 771. Now the opening from side to side, which is the width, is 600 millimeters. So we're going to go 600 minus 4. Again, we need 2 millimeters from the sides. That's 4 altogether. So we get 596. So we're going to write 596 in there. Now we need 2 rails at 596 millimeters and 2 stiles at 771 millimeters. So now we can head over to the miter saw and make those cuts. But first I want to run the grooves all around the 50 millimeter pieces for the center panel. Okay, now you can see I have all my stiles, which are the longer pieces, and I have all my rails cut to rough length. And the reason for that is because I want to be able now to take them, stack them together, and then I'm going to run a groove down all of the same side of them, referencing the same face using the router. Okay, so I have all the grooves cut in all of my pieces for the center panel. Now, this is the important part. We need to miter the ends. So my stiles are all going to be cut to the same length. So I put them in a group together, and I kept my rails off to the other side of the workbench because those are all going to be cut to different size because I have all different size doors. So what we're going to do is first set up a stop block so that we get repeatability, and all the stiles are exactly 771 millimeters. So we got to remember that it's long point to long point. So what I'm going to do is set up to cut a 45, and we need the groove to face us so that our miter it wraps around the door, encasing the panel. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up to cut a 45 on one side. Then, instead of swinging the saw back and forth, what I'm going to do is first clamp it down. After I cut the 45, I'll measure out so that I have my stop block set up over here at 771. I'll just flip the board and I don't have to rotate the saw, and I can cut the same miter. Measure out from the long point of this miter. So I'll make a mark here. I need 771. And now what I want to do is bring my saw down. I want to cut right to that line. Now, I'm going to lock it in place. Bring my stop block up. And now you can see I'm going to have the direction of the miter going exactly the same. Okay, so like always, I'm just going to do a quick dry fit, and also at the same time, once I put in the clamps to make those corners tight, I'm going to get my measurements for the inside panel. So you can see I have the dominoes on the rails, and you always got to do a dry fit because that's going to help you later on when you're ready to do the glue up. You don't want anything having a problem coming together. Just a little pressure is going to help everything to seat, and you can see how perfect everything lines up. And now I'm going to take my measurements for this panel. Now you got to remember, I went in 9 millimeters deep with the groove, so whatever our inside measurements are, we're going to add 16 to, not 18. I want to take away 2 millimeters to have a millimeter of play on each side to allow for expansion and contraction. We want that as a free-floating panel in there. Okay, so hinges for frameless cabinets are a different animal than the face frame ones. So the plate separates. That has to be brought in a certain amount of distance in here on the cabinet, and then they just clip on from the hinges just like this. They separate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install these first, and then I'm going to install the hinges on the door. So since we have the opening is 4 millimeters bigger than the door for that reveal, 2 millimeters all the way around, what I did was take a pocket rule, I set it to 100 millimeters, and what I'm going to do is make a mark down on the front of the cabinet at 100 millimeters. I can use this jig, which is made to install these exactly where you need them to be. I'm going to take an awl, a scratch awl, and punch a little hole in there, and that's going to be where I drill my holes. So you have to follow your instructions on the template for these. The only reason I'm going 100 millimeters down is to make and 100 millimeters up from the bottom is so that I know that since we are 4 millimeters shy, what I'm going to do is 2 millimeters from the top, 2 millimeters from the bottom on the door. I'm going to set those for the template for the jig to drill out the holes of the cup hinge at 98 millimeters. So that's going to take up that gap. So this way, when that sits on there, we'll be automatically 2 millimeters from the top and the bottom. But it has adjustment screws, and we'll be able to move it up and down. So let's install the hinge plates first, and then we will install the hinges. Okay, so I turn the cabinet on its side because it's a lot easier to do the install here with these when gravity's working in your favor. And now you can take a square or your pocket rule, and I like to do these by hand. Okay, so I have a posi drive screwdriver here, and that is because these are posi drive screws. I'm just going to start these by hand. These are going to self-center themselves. I just want to get them in position, and then as I hold the square in place, I will tighten it down, knowing that it's exactly squared up to the front. Now, go ahead and start to tighten it down. I'm right on my layout line, right in the center. You can see when the hinges get installed on the door, we just hook in the front here, and then they clip on the back, just like that. Okay, so now the door is 4 millimeters shorter than the opening on the carcass, and we went 100 millimeters down on the carcass. I'm going to mark down 98 on the doors. So I'm going to make a mark here at the corner at 98, make a mark at 98 on the bottom. Okay, now for the hinge cup, we're going up from the edge of the door 22 millimeters. Okay, so if you don't have a jig like this, you don't need one. You can do this freehand. So what I'm going to do is I took the jig apart using a 35 millimeter bit. I'm going to show you how to drill it out freehand. clamped my door to the table. And now I'm just going to drill down into the door until I get to the top of the drill bit. Try to stay as straight as possible. You could also use a drill press with this, or you can use the jig. Okay, now I'm perfectly seated. So, the moldings are all nailed off in place. There's glue and the pin nails holding it in. So you can see that really changes the whole outlook of the door. Gives it a nice little extra design. Okay guys, so that's it for this video in the series. This is going to be the second part of the kitchen island build. So this video is titled Mitered Doors, Kitchen Island Part 2. I'm putting it in the kitchen island building series. So you can see the island's really starting to take shape now. We have the full cabinets done, we have the doors all done. I did make the drawer fronts, and they're basically the same style as the cabinet doors. There's going to be some applied moldings on the sides and the corbels and everything. Alright guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I showed you how to build mitered flat panel doors with applied moldings in the center around the flat panel, and it really, you know, spices up the door, makes it look good. We installed the Euro hinges. I hope you guys took away as much as you possibly could in this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope if you have a situation where you have to build doors for cabinets, this does help you. In the next video, we're going to be working on the drawers, and since I already made the drawer fronts the same as the doors, we're not going to go through making the fronts again. But what I am going to be doing is making the drawer boxes, and I'm basically the highlight of the next video is going to be the drawer slides. These are the soft close or self-closing drawer slides. I'm going to show you guys how to get your drawer box sizes based on your hardware. So you got to remember that you got to purchase that hardware first so you know what you're working with. Alright guys, so I'll see you in the next video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the picture of a notification bell that'll notify you every time I upload a new video. I hope you guys liked the video, so give it a thumbs up if you did. If you got some information that was good and useful, definitely give it a thumbs up. That helps the channel out. And also check the description box below, and I'll have a link to the tools used in this video. If you see any of the tools that you want to purchase and they're not in the description box, there's no link for them, that means that they're on national back order, or they're just not being sold on Amazon, where I have the affiliate links, because sometimes Amazon doesn't stock a lot of the tools that I use. And like I said, if things are on national back order, then they're not going to have them, and neither is anybody else for that fact. But if there is something that I know is available somewhere else and you guys reach out to me, I will tell you guys where to get it. But in most cases, you can just do a Google search of that tool, and anybody that actually does have it or says that they have it, make sure you call them up and double check before you place the order. Alright guys, I'll see you guys next time in the shop. Thanks for joining me.